Shamps and Giggles. History, news, views, and reviews from a black perspective. Oh my goodness, Shamps and Giggles tonight. The Bob Marley movie. May I tell you, we're having a featured guest giving us a behind the scenes look because she was part of the production. Jay Davidson joins us on Shamps and Giggles this evening, and we are going to talk the things. Bob Marley, the movie, a behind the scenes, full visual with one of the team that was literally on set. Lord have mercy, this is a good one. So yeah, you know what? It's just amazing. This Bob Marley movie, just absolute phenomenal. There's been a lot of controversy around it, with it being filmed with actors that weren't Jamaican, so to speak. Jamaicans felt like there was them been done badly. And I saw the movie myself. I thought the movie was brilliant. We have here with us today Jay Davidson. And I did see your name, Jay, in the credits. Jay is the unit publicist on the Bob Marley biopic. Interestingly, she didn't just come. She has been in TV for a good while, worked in the industry for almost 3 decades. So she's very, very well established. And now, as I understand it, you've been through Kiss FM, Def Jam Records, BBC TV. And now, as I understand it, you're a freelancer, so you can do what you want to do when you want to.
Yeah, I left the plantation.
Just amazing. So you got your wings and now you're flying. So it's just a wonderful privilege, pleasure, and honor to have you on here with us on Shamps and Giggles. And we'll be talking the things. And as you know, it goes out to several radio stations. Everybody wants to know, what was it like working on this particular movie compared with the others that you have done?
Oh my gosh, it was insane because working in all these industries, especially in the UK, you are often, even in Black music spaces, you're often the minority. So I remember the first day I walked on set, because we shot the film in 2 halves, so it was almost like we shot 2 separate films. So the first half of the film we shot in London. And then we took a break, and around this time last year I'd just arrived in Jamaica, so we filmed half in the UK, half in Jamaica. And I remember arriving on set on the first day of filming, and I got introduced to Ziggy, and that was surreal in itself, because the producer said, "Jay, I want you to meet Ziggy," and he turned around and it was like Bob was looking at me, because he looks so much like his dad. And when you meet him in real life, it's even more. You literally stop, and I had to kind of hold it down a bit and just say hi, like, nice to meet you, Ziggy. And inside I was like, oh my God, you look so much like your father. And I said to him, Ziggy, I hear Jamaican accents everywhere on this set. It's something which I've never experienced before, but Jamaica was everywhere on this set. And he just looked at me and he went, I saw it, forgot. Started smiling, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm in the right place for sure. So yeah, it was just a surreal experience, in that to be in a set where we were centered, in a story that was centered on our culture and on a story that we knew, on an icon that we knew very well. And for me, as someone who grew up with Bob Marley, my era of Bob Marley in terms of what my album was, obviously there were a few before me, but the album which was mine personally, for me, was Uprising, his last studio album.
Wow.
Was the album which my dad bought for me. Well, he didn't buy it for me. My dad bought it. And it was that album which I sat and I knew, because, back in the day, you'd pull out the album and all the songs, all the lyrics were printed on the inner sleeve. So I knew all the words to all the songs on Uprising. And to be that little girl and then be on the set of the film and working amongst Marleys, both in London and then in Jamaica, it was just next level, because we were, going to Jamaica anyway is a blessing, but to go to Jamaica and work is another blessing. I've been to Jamaica working before. I've been to Jamaica with we've done one extra sessions in Jamaica in the studios and Big Yard and all that, doing live shows at Pier 1. So I've worked in Jamaica before, but to work in Jamaica on this project was amazing. And being there for 2 months was,
How many of the Marleys did you meet? How many of them was involved in the actual?
I met more than that was involved. So involved was Rowan, obviously Ziggy, but also Rowan, Sidella, Rita, obviously, and then visits to the set. Julian came to the set, like the brothers came to the set, but the ones who were there most regularly was Ziggy. Ziggy wasn't set every day. Sidella was there often. Sidella came to the UK filming on set, on location, and also to Jamaica, and Rita visited us a few times as well. So I met them all.
Is because we say Rita, is it Rita? How does she, is that?
Because the full name is Rita. So they will, in Jamaica, they'll call her Rita because it's her full name it's a shortening of her full name.
Ah, okay.
You know what Jamaicans are like, they shorten everything.
Would they have a nickname for everyone?
Someone look it up and you'll see what her full name is, and Rita is the end of her name.
Yeah, because Jamaica, nobody uses their name, everybody has a nickname.
Yeah, because Ziggy's name is David, so
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's just, you can't go there looking, what's government name? They don't have it. Yeah. Everybody have a different name. So you was working amongst family, you saw many of them. It was absolutely surreal. Can you get I don't know how you want to call it, but did you get your pictures taken with them or anything like that? Like, I was here.
No, I didn't. I was just very present. Part of me is like, why don't you get a photo with this and why don't I get a photo with that? But I was working, and I was the person who was the enforcer of the no cameras on set. It's a closed set. So as the unit publicist, it would have been out of sorts if I'm pulling out a camera. Do you know what I mean? Because it was a locked set. So I was responsible for the unit stills photographer. So if I was out there doing this, I was a policewoman going, can you put your camera away, please? Can you put your camera away, please? If I'm doing that, it would have looked really bad and it would have been anarchy. Right.
So your role on there as the unit publicist, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what was involved in that?
So the unit publicist is typically responsible for on set for all the behind the scenes footage, all the interviews with the cast and crew, because all of those have to be filmed whilst you're filming. So all the key interviews with the heads of department, so the director of photography, the producers, the head of costume, the head of makeup, all these people who also will be up for awards. You do interviews with those people whilst you're filming. Because once the film disperses, once the film wraps, everyone's gone to other projects. They're gone. So you have to capture all of that whilst you're filming. So I'm responsible for the interview with the cast. So you interview, the principal characters and the supporting actors, you interview them on set.
Is that you interviewing them or you?
No, I'm responsible for setting them up, and I'm also responsible for the producer. So in my team, I have a behind the scenes camera. I have a behind the scenes, behind the scenes camera, and I have a producer of what they call the electronic press kit, the EPK. What the EPK does is the interviews with all of these heads of department, all the crew, and all the cast. So I'm responsible for that, and I'm also responsible for all the behind the scenes footage. So you may see in social media and stuff images of, you can see there's cameras in the background, you can see camera over the shoulder of the director, you can see scenes where the director is talking to Kingsley and all of that happening. That was those are my cameras. My cameras shot all the behind the scenes.
Wow, so multiple cameras.
Yeah, no, well, we most of the time we had one camera that I was responsible for. That camera was on set every single day. And then on certain days when we were also doing interviews, key interviews, then I'd have another camera, and then I'd have an assistant to that camera, as well as the producer. So the producer would be the one sitting there and asking the questions.
So you're
then a stills photographer who was on set. She was on set every day.
So your experience from being on Def Jam, BBC One Extra, and all these things, when you get onto the Bob Marley set, the various bits of footage that you're getting behind the scenes, who dictates what the footage is? Is that something that you prepare, or someone says, we need to get an interview with Ziggy doing this, or an interview with somebody else doing that, with Rita, we need to get all these scenes? What determines what the footage is?
Well, the studio is very loose with it. The studio give me a camera. The studio say they want a camera on the set every day. The studio also gives you a list of people who you want to speak to, but that's it, because they're in LA. They're nowhere near you. They're nowhere near the set. They have no relationship with the actors. They're just like, look, we're filming this film. We want coverage every day, and we need you to interview all these people now. And not only that, you've also got the marketing department who want the image for the poster. So the image that you see, the iconic poster that you see, that's also a separate marketing shoot for the posters and all the promotional material. So all you're given is, this is what we want, and then you're left with the film schedule. All I've got is a film schedule where everybody is required every day for 60 days, and you can't have the actors on their day off. And I somehow have to get everything that I need from this, that the studio has asked me for, and I've got to deliver that despite them filming every day, and the actors got to have a day off. So I've got to basically produce magic out of a schedule that hasn't allowed for any of my stuff.
Phenomenal. So you have a checklist.
I have a checklist, and then I'm quite creative with it. And also, they weren't particularly prescriptive about what they wanted from behind the scenes. So that took me and a very creative cameraman to look at, capture that, or let's capture that. That's a moment to capture, or we're up there today, make sure we capture this. Or do you know what I mean? Because they don't know Jamaica, they don't know London, they don't even know what's culturally relevant necessarily. So we were capturing things that we know is something that we need to capture, because that is culturally relevant, that someone in LA wouldn't even know. And that was one of the reasons why they hired me, because they wanted someone from a Jamaican heritage, not just, my great uncle, my great granddad was born in Jamaica, but someone who actually understands Jamaica, can understand Jamaican patois, Jamaican culture, and who can spot things that someone who's not from the culture would necessarily recognize or see that's important to capture.
There's a lot involved there, because these people in California, right? They're the ones who controlling everything, pulling the strings, so to speak. And here's you lot in London and Jamaica.
Which is where the film was set predominantly. So that's why they wanted someone who was preferably British and of Jamaican background to do that, because I was spotting things that was like, no, we've got to capture that. We've got to capture that. Can we capture that, please? Do you know what I mean? Where someone, if you're not from Jamaica, or if you're not from the culture, you wouldn't even know that was something to capture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. By the way, if my reception goes off, I have another device here, so I will switch it intermittently, because sometimes we don't know what happens with the internet. Things can go awry. And so it's just so amazing that these people, they're in California doing what? They're just waiting for feedback from you guys. You guys send all the footage to California, and then they edit it? Or
Yeah.
you do the edit? Oh, that is
so we did all so my job is to create assets.
They call it assets. Okay.
Assets. An asset is something that you're going to use in an interview, that you're going to use online, that you're going to use in social media, that you might use in an award submission, because remember about these big budget movies is that they're going to submit the film into awards. And so those awards will need supporting material.
Right.
So if they might want an interview with the director, they might want an interview with the director of photography, they might want an interview with the person who did the set design, because all of those people will be submitted for awards as well as everything to do with social media, as well as, content for YouTube. So what you do is you shoot and photograph as much as possible, and then you send it to LA. The only downside of that is that you are actually sending it to people who won't necessarily
appreciate it like you do.
Yeah. So some of that I'm like, oh man, where's that thing we shot? But then there's other stuff I go, oh, they use that bit because I've seen it pop up on YouTube, or I've seen it cited in a post by Ziggy or something. I'm like, oh, I remember when we shot that stuff. So it's great that we actually see some of the stuff that we created coming through.
Something that is interesting that you said, they wanted somebody that understood Jamaicans and so on and so forth. Somebody from Britain who understood the pattern and so on. What do you think about the argument that was raised that they're not using Jamaican actors in the movie? I mean, there was this one guy, he was close to tears, talking about how, Jamaica have so many good actors and how them just go on left Jamaica and gone America and England and all them places, then they don't bring we in.
There is only like one American actor, Michael Gandolfini, who's acted as the record label person, who was American. It makes me laugh because I'm like, there were so many Jamaicans in this film. A lot of the people who were that like, you could tell, I know the clip that you're talking about, or that post that you're talking about, that guy hadn't seen the film yet.
Ah, no way.
Because that tirade of abuse came before the film came out. At that point, it had only been the premiere, and I don't think he was there. So the people making the most noise who hadn't seen the film. So, for example, no one talks about Kwan Dejai Enriquez, who played the younger Bob Marley. No one talks about him. And that's a young Jamaican performer, musician, who had never even acted before, who got cast to play the role as younger Bob, and the little boy who played younger Bob. There was Jamaican, not just a little, but there were 3 actors that played Bob.
Yes.
Not just one. And the other 2 were Jamaican. There were the Jamaican I3, who stood side by side by Rita. One was Naomi Cowan, who is a musician in her own right, had a track out with Toddler T and Idris Elba last summer. She was singing on one side, and the other side was Anna Share, who is an artist in her right in Jamaica as well. And then the whole of the Wailers band were all Jamaican. And what people didn't recognize is that the guy who played Junior Marvin, when he says Junior Marvin in Control,
yeah,
that was Junior Marvin's son. Which people didn't know. So you had actors you had performers, and he's got his own social following and stuff. He's got, about 70,000 followers on Insta, but he played his dad. Because his dad came to the set when we were filming in London. Junior Marvin came to set, and so we had this mad surreal moment when.
Are we saying Junior Marvin or Junior Mervin?
Marvin.
Police and Thieves.
No, Police and Thieves is Mervin.
Okay, so Marvin
is the guitarist from the Wailers.
Okay, no, I'm just saying, not to be confused with Junior Mervin.
You're the only one getting confused here, bruv.
Well, okay.
No, I'm only playing. So Junior Marvin was played by his son. And R.I.P. Family Man, because Family Man was the cornerstone of the Marleys, the bass player of the Marleys. In the movie, Family Man was also played by his son, Aston Barrett Jr.
Right.
So when people say there was no Jamaicans in it, then you have Cornelius, who played Bucky Marshall. So you've got I don't think you've heard that many Jamaican, apart from maybe Shotters, heard that many Jamaican actors in the space of one movie in a very, very long time. So yeah, I understand, because for me, even when and the producers will testify to this, when they met me for the final kind of, we really want you to work with us, would you consider it? And I went and met them in Soho in November. I remember saying to them, listen, this can't be Cool Runnings. Like, I don't care who or what, but if I'm going to be involved in this, it has to be authentic. And so what are you putting in place to ensure that, you know? And they're like, well, one of the reasons, we want it to be the same, So I never felt that Jamaica was being sidelined or pushed out or ignored or not included. Quite the opposite, in fact. But I think that for a role like that, it's not that we're saying that there aren't any good actors in Jamaica. Not true, because there were Jamaican actors in the film. In fact, one of the people that they pushed forward said, why wasn't this person in the movie? That's why I was laughing, because he was in the movie. He was acting as Neville Garrick, and that's the Don Sheldon Shepherd who played Neville Garrick. So I think that people get quite emotional when it comes to Jamaican storytelling. We get quite emotional, and we love to make noise, and we want to make sure that our voices are represented. And I think that it was.
Interesting you mentioned Cool Runnings. This is not going to be another Cool Runnings, because that's what first thing that I thought of, Cool Runnings, and that argument popped up back then. I saw Bob Marley, had to see it, of course, in view of the fact that I was having this discussion with you. I felt so comfortable. I was so comfortable watching that movie. I was like, what is the hoo-ha? There was no issue. It was fine, just like you said, everybody had taught the patois. You know what I mean? The little white did there, and then I call him out, standard.
That was one of my favourite lines in the film. He said, I want to do this white. That was one of my favourite lines. Because I didn't see, that day was up in Strawberry Hills, we filmed that. So we filmed that on location in Strawberry Hills, which is where that meeting took place after he got shot. And I was doing an interview, a behind the scenes interview with Naomi that day. So I missed the actual filming of that scene. So the first time I saw it was in the cinema when we were watching it, and I was cracking up, because that's exactly what would have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely standard, So when the movie finished and we was talking about it, was like, what's this hoo-ha about not enough Jamaican? I mean, it felt right at home to me.
I think people also need to remember that it's not just about what you see on screen. I mean, you can replicate the Caribbean if you want to. Like if a film really wanted to, or if a film just wanted to make a film about the Caribbean, they could have gone and shot on another Caribbean island, or they could have, gone to Mexico and recreated scenes if they wanted to, right? The terrain and build a set. Because Jamaica is not an easy place to film in. Jamaica's an expensive place to film. They don't offer tax breaks to film there like other islands do. So they could have said, you know what, it'd be nice to film in Jamaica, but it's a bit expensive. But they didn't. I don't know. There are, people talking about authenticity. I don't know many film productions that would have gone to Trenchtown. Do you know what it is to film in Trenchtown?
I don't, to be fair.
In 2023.
I don't, to be fair. Tell me what's Trenchtown like, basic?
On a regular day, Trenchtown is Arms House.
Lord have mercy.
On a regular, listen, one of my people came down, because you know how it is, you go to Jamaica, someone says, carry this for my friend, I'll carry this something for my friend. So I had something to take, it was a good friend, so I didn't mind. So I had something to take to my friend, mutual friend, she lives in Kingston. And when I told her that I was down by Maypen Cemetery, she said, what you do down there? I was like, we're shooting, that's where we are, we're just shooting down there today. And when she came down to pick up, I said, listen, this is where I am, if you want to, exactly. It's a no-go area. It's no-go area for people who do not live in downtown Kingston. If you don't live in downtown Kingston, you've got no reason to go down there. And we were based in there. We had our unit base right in Trenchtown. When she came down, she was worried. She was like, I don't normally come down here.
Yeah, look over your shoulder. What security then did you guys have?
First of all, I can't talk about Trenchtown without talking about a very special man who unfortunately passed away whilst we were filming. And this was a man, the Don Dada of location managers. And he was a man called Colin Smichael. And Colin and his locations team you know, basically were the ones that did the groundwork of ensuring that we were filming in Trenchtown. He had all of those conversations. He had those existing relationships. As a location manager, that's your role, really, is to find the locations, secure those locations, and all the negotiations around shooting in those locations. And everybody in Trenchtown loves Colin. Do you know what I mean? Like, so what he did was he did all that logistical work to ensure that, you know, and our unit base, imagine the unit base, which is where the production team making the film sit. The unit base was sat in the boys' football ground in Trenchtown. We were based there, you know, and all of that work, the foundation of that was Colin. Yeah, he did have a memory credit. He did. That's right. So once you've got that, and then, you know, the Dons agree.
You know when Bob Marley was in the car and all those people were gathering around the car, I think he'd come back to Jamaica because he'd come out of Jamaica. He came back, he was in the car driving. Was that in Trenchtown then?
Yeah.
And all the people were coming in.
Yeah.
So, and was that the normal people that paid actors?
Yeah. No, those are all people from Trenchtown.
Oh, wow. So they got involved.
We just dressed them up. Our costume department, big up Anna Shepherd, our costume department dressed them, and our hair team, the hair and makeup people, created them as 1970s people, put them in 1970s clothing, but they were all Trenchtown people.
It's quite amazing, though, that in this country it's so difficult. Well, it's becoming so difficult to film now because you've got all these buildings going up everywhere, and the look of the 70s, 80s is completely, well, it's fading away very fast. But in Jamaica, that's not the case, though, is it? I mean, it's still pretty much. Has it changed much?
Jamaica?
Yeah.
Of course, Trenchtown, not much. No, those houses are still there. I was able to, because what was beautiful about Colin and what he was able to create for us, it meant that we pretty much, not across the road, you know, not on the other side of the road, but certainly in Trenchtown, we had an area which literally was so safe that I was able to walk around, and I never, in fact, and I'm not the only one that says this, Kingsley would say this as well. If you say, what was your favorite part of shooting in Jamaica? Pretty much everyone in the crew and the cast would say Trenchtown, because the people were so welcoming and so accommodating and so happy that they were being truly represented. It wasn't like we built a set that looked like Trenchtown. And the same when we shot down, and you might have seen a scene where him and the young Rita and Bob are sitting by the dock of the bay and they're holding hands. That was down at Fisherman's Point in Port Royal. We shot on location there as well, and both communities, both in Port Royal and in Trenchtown, where we shot on locations, were just so opening and welcoming to us. Do you know what I mean? So Trenchtown was our favorite place to film. It was for me, because you met the real man then, you know what I mean? And you know, on the street, you might see the street we were driving down is either Second Street, where we drove down, the tenement yard that Bob lived in when him and his mum moved from St. Anne's, is still there.
Right. Yeah.
Those buildings are still standing.
You know, when I saw the footage of the car driving up to the gate, and I just looked and I said, wow, things have not changed. Because the road, when you look at the road, the cracks in the road and the trees and all the rest of it, it just looked like it's been there forever.
Yeah, so, and when you see the scenes of them jogging in early morning through Trenchtown, that is Trenchtown.
Yeah, yeah.
When they're running.
It's quite amazing. It did have a natural feel to me. It just had such a natural feel.
But let me just say, to create those scenes is no easy feat. There was yes, of course, Colin did what he did to ensure that it was safe, but it was a security operation every time we were in and out, you know, but we had the people of Trenchtown at the bottom of the road, at the top of the road, all land traffic, you know, can't go round, so you can't come down here, street lock off. You know, we had all of that going on. It was hilarious. Do you know what I mean?
They involved themselves. And
they were involved. They were very much invested. And also a lot of people were eating food. We had stewards, we had the people that were doing the catering, working with us. We had the extras who were involved. you know, the fire warden. We had all kinds of people, you know, who were employed and working with us on the set to keep it. So there was no chance of it popping off, you know what I mean, whilst we were filming.
Couple of questions here. I see in the chat. And by the way, guys, feel free to put the questions in the chat. I see one here. He says, where you find Bob's old BMW car?
There's actually hold on a second, because I've been told to turn off my Saturn. So I'm going to put my phone on flight mode. Sorry, because my WhatsApp keeps popping off. So you had somebody who literally, whose job it was to, because we didn't import those cars, people in Jamaica owned, so the old Beetle that Rita was driving, the blue BMW, those are cars that were owned by people on the island, and it was somebody's job to go and find and source them.
Wow. And of course, the islands are notorious. They have old cars. That's just standard. Of
course, especially classic cars, you know what I mean? But it was somebody, you know, God bless the people on the crew, because you just had some real people. You were just, and it was a close call. They're like, you better find this car. You've got to find this car. We're not going to report it. You better find it. And they found it. Yeah.
Wow. So that's how they got the car.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord. And Rita and the Beetle we saw as well. Now, Rita Marley, who is she?
What do you mean, who is she?
I thought she was a girl from the Cosby Show, the little girl grown up. Am I right or am I right?
No.
Who is she? She looked like her.
You're talking about Nia Ashi, who acted as a young Rita?
No, she acted as an older Rita.
That's Lashana. What are you talking about? Lashana Lynch?
Oh, that's Lashana Lynch. Okay, she looks like a little girl from Bill Cosby.
No, Lashana's from Shepherd's Bush.
Okay, so she got a big role.
She's had bigger roles. She's already done 007.
Oh, that's Lashana Lynch.
Yeah.
She was playing as, she looked totally different than in the role of 007.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's acting.
Okay, your face was very familiar. And but she did very well as Rita. We was all surprised that Rita got shot.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't realize, but yeah, it was a big deal, you know, that because now Bob felt that not only was his life in danger, but he was putting his wife's life in danger as well, you know. I don't think anyone under the age of 60, I have to get higher in ages now, will really appreciate what it was that what Jamaica was like in the 1970s. It was so volatile. Bullets popping off left, right, and centre, and very, very political. And they were looking to take them both out.
You know, that was quite crazy, because Bob, he actually brought the politicians of the time who were completely against each other.
So Michael Manley and Edward Seaga, yeah, PMP and the Jamaica Labour Party, yeah. Because those are the warring factions. It was all very influenced by America. It was outside influences causing complete destabilization of the island. That meant that the elections were extremely violent in Jamaica. It was a very violent time, and the regular people were suffering, you know, through political violence. And it was, you know, and so Bob was saying we need to unite as people. We need to unite. So that's where he came back and did the peace concert. And a lot of people don't appreciate. I think there are a lot of people 40 years on since his birth just think that, oh, he was this artist that made great songs, but actually he was a lot more than that. And just imagine that in the mid 70s, mid to late 70s, it was political to say, you know, we need to unite. You know, it was political. It was deemed as a political thing to call for peace. It was a political thing to say back to Africa. It was a political thing to talk about things like this. And so instead of seeing Bob as, you know, this amazing musician, they saw him as a political threat, which is why they tried to take him out and caught Rita up in the crossfire.
Yeah, but according to the thing, she was out in the car and they took her out first, and then they came in the house after him.
Yeah. So there's some questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to start answering.
Yeah, I'm gone. But before we do, I just want to give credit to Lashana. Here is Lashana Lynch.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Queen. Love her.
But she looked amazing in the movie, and I think she did massive credit to Rita, the part that she played. She did a phenomenal job of that. So what about the actor that played Bob?
So that was the
What can you tell us about him?
phenomenal
We have that question from the natural.
Kingsley Benadir. Yeah, so Kingsley was a joy to work with. Kingsley's a method actor, and a method actor is somebody who really gets under the skin of the role. It's not just reading pages off a screen. You really have to get inside the mind of the character and bring it out and perform that. And I saw the levels that he went to get into that space. And people sort of say, yeah, he's the guy that played in the Barbie movie. Yeah, but he's also played as Malcolm X, and he's also played Obama, and he's somebody who is, and Peaky Blinders, for those who watch Peaky Blinders. But he's somebody who has proved his credentials as an actor.
You could see he put a lot of work in, because all the dance moves and so on that he was doing.
There's a lot to go. There's a lot that goes into it. So, as well as somebody who, because some of you may have seen, and if you haven't seen it, I do recommend that you see the interview. It's a 20-minute interview that he did. It's one of the best interviews that he did in the promotional run. He did an interview on the Breakfast Club in New York, and that's where he breaks down what it took to be that, because it's not easy. Like someone said, why, and she was in The Woman King, obviously. Yes, Lashana was the warrior queen in The Woman King, but to take on a role like that, it's the mental strength it takes to do a role like that, number one. And then it's not just you have a linguistics coach, a cultural coach, big up Miss Faye Ellington and Brett, who were on set with him every day, who wrote the script out in patois phonetically for him. And then you'd have people from the University of West Indies who were also involved in the script for both of them, to ensure that it wasn't just patois, but patois from the 1970s, because there are certain things that people say now that weren't said in 1960s and 1970s Jamaica. The language changes over time. So you had to have someone who was ensuring that whatever he said wasn't just something that someone would have said, like you see it, people weren't saying things like that in the 1970s. So it was about making sure that it was period, the right period of language. So as well as that, you also had Polly. Polly was his movement coach that taught him how to move and walk like Bob, because also he was much taller. Bob was like 5'6" and Kingsley's over 6 foot. So how do you have him as a tall person move and dance and walk? So you had to study the walk. Any actor would have to do this regardless of height. You have to study how someone hangs himself, but how they sit, how they move, how he holds his head up, all of that. And you have to do that whilst you're acting. Not only that, you also had Ben, and Ben was the guitar coach, and Ben had to teach him how to play, not just how to play the guitar, but how to play the guitar like Bob played the guitar, and do that whilst dancing, whilst singing the lyrics, and whilst, acting,
Right. So how to basically embody Bob.
Yeah.
But the height, I didn't realize Bob Marley was 5'6" or so, and the actor who played him was 6 foot.
Yeah. So, and the same with Lashana as well. Lashana is really tall. Both Bob and Rita were both little people.
Right. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, neither one of them were tall.
Did they have to?
With cinema, what you have to do is, and what people don't necessarily get, you have to get the right people to act. You have to have 100% conviction in their skills as an actor. And then you can create everything else. If they need coaches to do this, that, and the other, you bring that. But their skills as an actor is what is paramount to everything else. Because I know that people sort of saying, you know, why didn't they get this actor? Plenty of people at Jamaica can act. It's like, yeah, I'm sure plenty of them can act, but have they got, how many hours of Hollywood do they have under their belt? Because it's
is
not
that what they consider, how many hours of Hollywood?
Yeah, but it's because when you look at it, and as I watched it, you need to have somebody who can, because Kingsley said it in the interview on Breakfast Club, that he was, at one stage, he was nobody's friend. Nobody was his friend on set because he was challenging and pushing and asking questions. And no, Bob wouldn't have said that at this point. You need somebody who's a really confident actor to have the strength of mind to challenge a Hollywood director and say, no, that's not how it would have gone. You need somebody who is confident enough about who they are to say to Ziggy, no, Ziggy, I don't think that's how it would have been played, and for Ziggy to reason with him about that. So I think that you have to have somebody who is confident in themselves as an actor to play a role like that. Otherwise, you're going to buckle under the pressure of a big Hollywood studio telling you this is how it's got to be done. You've got to have the strength of character to say, no, I'm going to do it like this.
Wow. And he had that strength. So he knew Bob, or he knew the family, or what gave him that strength of character to challenge that?
Well, what gave him the strength of character to do that is, first of all, the family endorsed him. Because I think Ziggy said when he was looking for somebody, he wasn't looking for a lookalike. They've got that in the family. They weren't looking for a sound-alike. They weren't looking, it wasn't karaoke. They were looking for somebody who brought the essence of Bob in the script. And he said that Kingsley gave it. He said, immediately as he saw Kingsley, he said, yeah, man, I him that. You know what I mean? And then he said that Sedella gave him tapes of Bob that no one had heard before, that only the family had, that no one outside the family had heard. And he said, you just listen to it every day for 9 months. He listened to Bob's voice. He listened to Bob talking about things. He heard Bob's opinions about everything. He literally lived with this man's voice in his head day after day after day after day for months, so that when something would come up in the script, he'd be able to say, this is what Bob needs to say now. Or he wouldn't have said it like that. Exactly, method acting, you know. And so it takes a real skill and confidence in your craft, because acting is a craft that I don't think people respect enough to know what it is. It's quite exhausting as well to take on somebody like that. You get squeezed because you in your head are this character, and you have to do it justice, because it's not just any old character, it's Bob Marley.
Absolutely. And that question here by sister Queen here, how many British people were in One Love, and why were the leads British? We sort of covered it, but you can.
So the leads were British because those are the best people who auditioned. You know, I think that I wasn't in the room, but the leads were not just chosen by the studio. There were auditions in Jamaica. There were auditions in America, I believe, but definitely in Jamaica and in the UK. And I think that when you are a casting director, and when you're the director, and when you're the producers, you can't get emotional about this stuff. You have to give it to who can nail this, you know, and Nashana consistently nails it, you know. And Kingsley, you know, if an African American like Regina King can call up Kingsley and say, my actor has pulled out as the role of Malcolm X, can you take it on? And we start filming in 2 weeks. And she had the confidence to give it to a British guy as an African American and say, I want you to play Malcolm X. I don't think we should be any different. You know, no one said nothing when Denzel played Steve Biko, or when Forrest Whitaker played Idi Amin, or when Morgan Freeman played Nelson Mandela. You know, it's, you know, you need great actors to carry these roles. It's not as easy as everyone thinks it is. It's not just about being a great actor.
No, you're quite right. I mean, of course, acting, what you've just explained about him having to get into the mind of Bob Marley is quite, it's got to be quite taxing for him to do it. And it's just an interesting question. That time frame, is that, does he have to go somewhere like away from home, so he can't be involved in the everyday activity of, how does he get into that mind space?
Yeah, I mean,
step away and go.
The preparation started months before we started shooting. the preparation started long before we started shooting, and I never saw Kingsley when we weren't filming. He had to literally step away completely. He'd have to have a day to himself where he could just go like that, you know, just be, I'm going to be myself, you know. So, you know, but it's very taxing because it's physically challenging and mentally challenging. And you're away from home, he's away from his family. He's, you know what I mean? He's literally, this is what I'm doing for the next 6 months to 8 months to 9 months. This is what I'm doing. What was the question?
Why did they miss out Peter Tosh is a question, because there's a lot of chatting in the chat, but here's
Yeah, I
the
can
question.
see it.
Why did they miss out Peter Tosh?
I don't know the answer to that, because Peter Tosh was cast, and so was Bunny. Bunny was cast, both Peter and Bunny, because they were in the earlier, like when they were in Coxon's studio, you see a young Tosh and you see a young Bunny. And then the next stage, when they were young adults, or just as they were about to bust, they were cast. So there's an actor called Alex, big up Alex, who played Peter Tosh, and Abijah Livingston played his dad, Bunny Wailer. And those scenes didn't make it to the final cut, and I don't know why. I think that when you're editing a film, all kinds of decisions are made about the timeline and what they keep in and how they're piecing together the story. So, you know, all we do is, and what, you know, Kingsley was asked the same question, is like, we shoot the scenes, and then whatever they do in the edit suite, we don't know. I wasn't party to those decisions.
Who's in the edit suite? Would that be someone that's of native Jamaica or somebody culturally?
Ziggy's there. Ziggy's there. Sedella's there. Rowan's there. Stephen was I don't know. Well, Stephen would have been there because Stephen was one of the musical supervisors on it as well. Stephen Marley. So I mean, I wasn't there, but I know that you're not going to have any point where the family are not present at all. That's just not going to happen. They don't make any decisions without the family.
Okay, so it's not done in Hollywood.
It was done in Hollywood, but Ziggy lives in LA.
Okay, so and other family members, because they were on set, you were saying, so they were.
Yes, Sedella was on set. You know, they're all credited as producers, so nothing would happen that they did not sanction. Because remember, if you look at the credits, you'll see that that the film, you see Plan B, which is Brad Pitt's film company. You see Paramount Pictures, Plan B, and Tough Gong Films. So all those three would be represented in the edit suite. Tough Gong being the Marleys, Plan B being one producer, and then Paramount. Yeah.
Here's another question. Sorry.
No, go on, ask the question.
Did the actors who played Bob and Rita have to audition? I'm sure they did.
I don't know. I don't know if they, I mean, I would know, in fact, yes, because Kingsley would have auditioned. Kingsley said that he auditioned. I can only go by what they said in interview, but Kingsley did audition. Again, I have to stress, please go and see the interview on YouTube, on The Breakfast Club, because he talks about it in depth. But he said that he auditioned, and actually Ziggy talks about seeing him in audition, because they did audition lots of actors. And when they came to him and said that they wanted him for the role, he said, have you looked extensively? Have you thoroughly looked? And he went, go and look again. I want to be absolutely sure that I'm the person that you want for this role. So I really want you to go and look again.
Wow. It's obviously not, there's a lot of weight on everyone's shoulder, because obviously you've got to do justice for Bob Marley and what people think and who people think Bob Marley is and was, and also people's expectations.
And I get it. If I wasn't involved in this film, I'd be the same, you know. Bob Marley is like one of those people that in history, people who they feel they have their own personal connection with, you know. They have personal ownership over him because he's played a role in their life personally, and so it's and so they're very invested, more than they would be in anything else, you know. So I understand it. I understand that people will have wanted it to be depicted in that way, or why didn't this happen, or why didn't that happen. I understand that because of who Bob is, you know. Bob Marley is a name that gets someone like me with hair like this. When I travel to places that are not Black, especially non-English speaking places, and people say, where are you from? Because I never say Britain. And I say, I'm from Jamaica. I don't say Britain because people look at me like I'm weird and say, no, where are you from? So I bypass that question and they say, where are you from? And I say Jamaica. And the first name they say is Bob Marley. It's literally the only thing. They'll just say, Bob Marley.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
So he's everybody owns him in a way, you know. So everyone's gonna have,
because he's played throughout Europe, he's played throughout the world, hasn't he?
Yes.
You know, interesting that you bypass saying that you're from Britain, because then people ask where you really from.
Because no one gets that concept.
And that shows that the media portrayal of Black people, how Black people is portrayed in this country, well, we're not. So people don't see that Black people are in this country.
Yeah, I mean,
even in America.
We're in Europe. So if we're in this country, then we came from somewhere else. Let's not get it twisted. Yes, we have a passport. Yes, we have rights to be here, just about, depending on when you came or where your parents arrived or filed for papers, whatever. But we're not from here, and we need to stop it. Like, we live here and we were born here, but we're not of here. So when we're overseas, people obviously say, like, where are you from? And I'm not offended by it either.
Do you know that also applies to white people? Many white people, they're not from here.
I know, but white people are from Europe. So they're not going to get questioned because they're not visibly, they're visibly from here. You know, you look at me straight away, you see foreign, even if I talk the way I talk.
You know, that's a big conversation there. Let me just get Leisha's question out here. Look, could this film have been shot as a two-part film? They missed out some very interesting early history about Bob Marley and how his music changed during his career.
Possibly. I mean, when you film a film, you film a lot. You know, if you imagine 60 days of filming, that's a lot of filming. I wouldn't say it's not because they don't know history, because I don't know which the they you're talking about, because I'm pretty sure that Rita knows the history, and I'm pretty sure that Neville Garrick, and I have to also mention Neville because Neville was the art director for the Wailers, and Neville was on the set every day. And very sadly, Neville passed away in November. And it was heartbreaking because he was like everybody's uncle. I love that man because he brought such a light and an energy. And so Sheldon Shepherd, who played his part, you know, when he's in there showing the album cover and all of that kind of stuff, Sheldon had Neville with him every single day. Neville was with us. Neville would tell us, you know, that wouldn't go on, that wouldn't happen, or that wouldn't have happened like that. Simple things like there'll be a scene where everyone's bunning weed everywhere.
I saw that.
Right in the center. And I remember I was sitting with Neville, and Neville said, it wasn't really like that, you know. I said, what do you mean? He said, because weed was expensive. Weed wasn't just everywhere, sir. Everybody never have weed. And furthermore, Bob held our weed. We didn't have weed. Bob would give us a little guanga roller spliff.
You'd have a draw, that's right.
You just give it Bob with that, but it wouldn't be just weed everywhere. And so I'd say to him, go and tell them. And he said, no, man, make them go on. I'd be like, that's why you're here. And he said, I true still. So he'd go in there, and then when you see the film, they pared it down a bit. It wasn't just the ganja smoke everywhere, because it wasn't like that. As I said, it was expensive, especially in London. But I think that
was good weed back then as well.
I won't talk about that here. I don't know. I wasn't around. But you're right. They could have produced many different angles of this story, because they filmed 1960s, they filmed when him and Rita got together, they filmed him and Peter and Bunny, they did London, they shot a lot. If you imagine 60 days of filming, when you whittle that down to what they put out there, who knows the different conversations about the narrative, because you can shoot all of that and then you've got to create a story that gels over a period of time. And in the end, they decided to focus on the last 5 years of his life, really, on the Exodus album, when they could have, with flashbacks to the past, was the way that they chose to tell the narrative. And so, yeah, it did mean that certain parts of the story that people maybe have been expected to see, they didn't see. But had they had a different narrative, then they would have cut a different film from what they shot. So at the end of the day, it's down to the filmmakers to decide this is the narrative of what we're going to tell. And then that decides what scenes stay in and what scenes don't, because they can't fit it into the narrative that they've chosen to take. And that can only be down to what the family and Rita decide is what they wanted to make. And this one, I think they centered more on the relationship between Bob and Rita and the message. And I think people can get quite caught up in, they didn't do this and they didn't do that. And I think that's a valid point about the music change. But I think that given where we are right now in the world, and even in Jamaica, I think that there is a message there that people have neglected to notice about what Bob was about and what he was fighting for and what he believed in. And that actually he used to say, my life is not important. You know, the people is important. The message is important. And that's the message which I think people, I hope, took from the movie. What was important to me was that young people understood who Bob was, because us old heads know what Bob was about. And many of us don't even practice that in any shape or form. If you go to Jamaica now, they're still warring over political colours. So, you know, that's still happening. But what was important to me is that the children, our children, know that Bob was not just a musician. So what was beautiful to me was one of my friend's sons. He's 17. He's now obsessed with Bob Marley. He only knew about one love and No Woman, No Cry. Now he's downloaded all of these albums off Spotify because he now understands the context of the songs. And I think that that's really what's important.
It gave more meaning to the songs. Watching the movie gave a lot more meaning to the songs. Does the family have full rights to the movie?
I have no idea. No one has full rights to anything these days.
That's true.
Because the studio, you know, Tough Gong has rights, Paramount will have rights, and so will Plan B.
No, that's true. Nobody has full rights. What Brad Pitt? He was listed on the credits. What did you see? Did you see him on set ever or?
No, so Plan B is Brad Pitt's company.
Right.
The Plan B, one of the production companies, is Brad Pitt's production company. His co-presidents of the company, that's Jeremy Kleiner and Dee Dee Gardner, they were involved in the film. So Jeremy was on the set pretty much every day, and he runs Brad's company. But it was Brad's company. So Brad's company, just like if your company had contributed to a thing, you're going to get your credit because it was your company.
Right. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. Because we saw the name Brad Pitt. Oh, look, Brad Pitt. And in my mind, I was like, well, somebody had to fund the whole thing. So maybe
that's a $70 million film, man. No one's going to front that up by themselves.
70 million. Any idea what it took at the box office in the first week?
100 million.
I took 100 because that's very important. I've been saying to people,
that's just in America, though. That was just America, not global.
I've been saying to people, go watch it in the movie theater. Don't watch it on YouTube, because the money we pay in is important to the movie, because then it says whether or not it's worth them producing more movies like that.
I think that the film can do a lot more if people have a broader outlook on and a broader perspective, because I think that, for example, the Jamaican Prime Minister, he actually came down to the set. He visited the film set when we were doing, you know, the big concert scenes in Jamaica. He came down on the set when we were filming that day, and he kind of saw the scale and what it meant to have a big production filming in the heart of Kingston. And he saw how big the operation was and how many people were employed. And it really gave, you know, a good incentive for him to start thinking about, well, maybe we should make it easier to film in Jamaica. Maybe we should be supporting the arts, the film industry and the arts in Jamaica more than we currently do. Jamaica is a brilliant place to film because it's so beautiful. It's got many different terrains. It's got jungle. It's got beaches. It's got rivers and mountains, and
I can see that
and
you're
a lot
really
of talented filmmakers, a lot of talented people are in Jamaica.
I can see that you're really passionate about the movie and the part you played in it. I mean, you're just like, whoa, bubbling over. There's a few hands up. They want to ask you a question. I see Pinky's hand up. I thought I saw D Natural's hand up, but Pinky's got a hand. Let's just add Pinky into the mix here. If Pinky will unmute. Pinky, your hand's been up for a while. Come and talk the things.
Hi, good evening and welcome. I thought it was a fantastic. One of the things that I really wanted to say when you said who did the was it Polly?
Yeah.
They talk, because there was a shot that I saw for a bit that I really was almost convinced it was Bob.
She would love to hear that.
Almost convinced. I was really almost convinced, because we used to be over the park when Bob used to be over in Battersea Park. The only thing, and where he was in the house, which is just right by where I still live now. So that was a bit, not the house, because I know there too well. And I was sort of like trying to look in the movie, but it was looked quite blurred outside. But I mean,
Chelsea.
Yeah.
We filmed in the actual
house. In the house.
We filmed in Oakley Street in the house, yeah.
It so didn't look like the house to me.
It is the house. The owners allowed us into the house.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
They vacated for the day.
Okay, so that's why certain things were a bit okay.
Yeah.
But I noticed outside they're blurred slightly.
What, through the window or?
Yeah, like the windows and that was, I
some of it they had to do a bit
of
with, because otherwise it's going to look too modern.
But
it was the actual house, and that was Battersea Bridge they ran over, and that was Battersea Park.
Well, we know that, because I know that. You can't mistake that. I've been living there for the last 50 years, so no, a little bit longer than that, but I ain't going to tell you. But yeah. But
part of the house was to clarify, part of the house was a film set, and part of the house was the actual house at Oakley Street that the owners let us.
Okay. Well, we know the park was definitely park, and the tracksuit, everything. That particular day is a very important day still, because there was like about probably about 13, maybe 14, 15 of us that bombarded him the day coming over from the estate into the park. So yeah.
Oh, back in the day, Pinky, you were there.
Well, yeah, because we knew that it's our manor. This is our manor. This is our manor.
Okay, hold just one second. I just want to thank all the radio.
So when I watched the movie, I was like,
one second, Pinky. One second. Just one second. Just want to thank all the radio listeners for tuning in. The show is pretty much over, but we're just going to go to an after-hour special off camera where we'll just talk the things as we can do. Okay, so we'll stop recording from now. A lot of it.
No, I just